It's Cofield and Company, live on ESPN Las Vegas and ESPN Sports Reno.
You know what's been most gross about this conference chaos stuff, and especially the latest round, John, with the Pac-12 and the Mountain West and San Diego State trying to be scuzzy and dissolve the Mountain West and leave a bunch of Mountain West teams behind, is how many fans and even media people start coming up with their own formula of who should be left on the wayside. And I keep hearing New Mexico left out, and I don't get it. I remember the days where New Mexico had, really good success in both basketball and football. And if this is what it's about, football, they're not a nothing. And it's been a rough time recently. So Sean Reider's covering the Lobos football program, and they're on the come. They're trying to bounce back from really rock bottom with Danny Gonzales there now. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Did I frame that correctly? How do the people in Albuquerque feel right now with all this conference chaos stuff, and no one mentions New Mexico, and then you got other schools' fans who are like, screw New Mexico, drop them?
They feel hopeful and also very defensive. As you have noted,
yes,
they have been one of the schools that are kind of counted out because of the lack of football success. But I think they're like a lot of Mountain West fans. They feel very good, if not very opportunistic, about what the Mountain West could be. Whether it actually takes that form, I don't have the answer on that.
Hey, what do you think? To speculate here, now that things have calmed down with the ACC, with Stanford and SMU and Cal, will the Mountain West presidents, be aggressive and try to fortify before they get picked apart anymore? Like, go grab Wazoo, go grab Oregon State.
Well, they have that Wazoo Board of Regents meeting, I believe, scheduled for tomorrow morning, and I think that should probably, hopefully, give a good answer on what their path will be going out. But I believe it was Bronco Nation News that they covered Boise State. They did a good interview with Gloria Navarez, where, she really said, we do want to add, and we do want to be proactive about adding, but we want to see how things shake out, what ends up being the best fit for us.
For folks who
I don't know. I can't.
I was going to say for folks who read up on the Washington State situation, a lot of their problems are they know they're going to be facing a big drop in revenue from the conference, and they're also kind of in the soup from a financial standpoint. I think they lost like 14 or 15 million last year, which, let's make the transition to Lobo athletics. It hasn't been easy money-wise, and 2020 with COVID was just really, really rough. So I want to frame this where, Gonzales walked into a really, really rough situation. Where do you think they are now? What's Gonzales' attitude on this rebuild? They should be coming out of it and making some progress, but can they, because they got hit by the transfer portal on defense?
I think, Danny has been very positive about a lot of things. He's said it a ton of times since I've been here. We came in with a plan and we had to adjust the plan because, the transfer portal, when he came in, was still in full swing, but now it's on a completely different level, as you guys know. NIL wasn't even legal when he took the job here. He's been very proactive about, adjusting that plan, and he has adjusted the plan. But unfortunately, you're right. The defense has been completely depleted. They did lose all 7 of their leading tacklers. The last to go was Deion Hunter, who went to Cincinnati. But at the same time, everything I've seen out of that defense, in terms of talking to Danny and talking to other guys on that defense, they feel very confident about where they are and what they can do this upcoming season.
So you have a promoted defensive coordinator, correct, on that side. So do you think there's going to be a steep learning curve? Because I would assume you keep over some of the same defensive principles as a 3-3-5, a defense that can be pretty complex.
They have indicated to me that there really hasn't been much of a learning curve at all. Even with guys like Diarco Perkins-McAllister and Marvin Covington, there are safeties from them. They came in from TCU's 3-3-5, which is different than what UNM does. But at the same time, they told me in the spring, we feel like we have a pretty good base understanding. It's just the verbiage is different. And then Noah Pulla-Gates is the safety that transferred in this summer. And he told me, he said, I'll be honest with you, it's the exact same thing we were running in the spring when I was with Tony White, another Rocky Long disciple. He said, again, it's just the verbiage is different. And then the rest of the guys that are going to be playing big time in that defense, they've all been here for 2-3 years and the like. They feel very good about where they're at.
Defensively, what would you say is the strongest position group?
Ooh, I'll go safety right now. Yeah, I'll go safety, but you could say corners. I would say the best player on the defense right now is Dante Martin, and he's a corner. But I think the safeties could end up being really good.
Sean Reider, ALB Journal, as we do our New Mexico preview, UNLV and New Mexico meeting this season. All right, let's go to offense. So, first of all, talking about what needed to be improved. We know quarterback. We'll get to that in a second. But, I mean, the last, it's 2.5 years now. I mean, what is it, like 20 of 21 games where they haven't scored more than 20 points? So, aside from quarterback, where do we see the vast improvement? How does this offense get better?
They got better a lot through the transfer portal in the spring with wide receivers in particular. The receivers, last year it was really just Jordan Porter and Luke Weissong. And when you're running guys like that and that's all that you have, it's going to be really, really tough. They've upgraded a lot of wide receivers. I'd say they added Jeremiah Hickson, who's an Alabama State transfer. Maybe not the most impressive name, but he's made a huge impact from what I've seen so far. DJ Washington is a 6'5", 220-pound wide receiver, super athletic. They feel the sky's the limit with him. He came in from Iowa Central Community College. In general, they've added Caleb Medford from TCU as well. Another guy, lengthy, twitchy, can get after it. That's where I've seen the most improvement, and a lot of guys on the defense in particular have said, for the first time in a while, we've really had to work against the first-team wide receivers and the second-team wide receivers. In the past, that wasn't really the case.
So a lot of the hopes about a big jump on offense are at quarterback. They've got a UAB transfer in, Dylan Hopkins. 20 hours ago, Sean Reider tweet, Dylan Hopkins has been shut down for now. What's going on here?
Yeah, so Danny told me, I was at practice yesterday, and you notice when you're proclaimed starter, the guy that a lot of the offensive hopes rest on is just not taking snaps. He's out there in full pads, and I asked him, hey, why didn't Dylan really do anything today? And he said, Dylan's thrown about 1,000 balls. He's really been getting after it. We feel like we need to rest him at this point. There's no injury concerns with him. It's just a very proactive rest period. He'll be back to practice on Monday.
So the chances of bettering 2-10 and 0-8 are pretty strong. The schedule is interesting. I mean, you tell us, especially about New Mexico State, but those first 4 games, you're at Texas A&M. That's going to be tough. Tennessee Tech, New Mexico State, and then at UMass. They got to get out to at least a 2-2 start there. Do they have a chance to go 3-1?
I think they do have a chance to go 3-1. I do think if you take A&M out of the mix, then I think New Mexico will be improved. I don't think they'll be compete with A&M at College Station improved, but I think they do. I think the toughest game there in the 3 games after is pretty clearly New Mexico State. I haven't heard good things about UMass. Tennessee Tech is FCS. No disrespect to them, but New Mexico State's going to be better than they were last year. And I think that'll be a really fun, competitive football game.
And then there's some litmus test, games during the season. One at Nevada, and Ken Wilson did not have a great season last year, and they've had to go to the portal a lot. So that's an important game for both programs, to make progress to get to 4, 5, 6 wins or more. And then UNLV here, check that, in Albuquerque on November 4th will be interesting because UNLV with a coaching change turned over about 40 players on their roster. So, I would think at best they've got to. You'd be hopeful to get a split there. I don't go 0-2. But these are all programs kind of in that. I think UNLV is a little bit ahead of the other two in terms of progress, but those are the teams that need to start moving in a positive direction to get to 6 or 7 wins.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I just want to say I'm going to be fascinated to see what happens with UNLV, particularly when they come to Albuquerque, where they're at in that point. Because, if Brennan Marion's go-go is clicking, that's going to be a really fun team to watch. But whether it starts clicking at all is kind of a big question.
Yeah, well, a lot of it at UNLV is going to be quarterback. Doug Brumfield, when he's been healthy, they're a different team, and now he's in his 3rd year, so he's got to stay healthy. So high hopes here. What do you think of New Mexico's attendance coming up this year? Can they get good vibes going early on to get the attendance up? Because that's also when we talk about the conference chaos stuff. That's a lot of, I think, the perception issue with New Mexico that, it's not worthy of being in a bigger conference because the crowds haven't been there. But I'll always tell people between basketball and football, if it's rolling well, Lobos fans are some of the best fans in the entire conference. They show out, but you got to give a decent product.
Exactly, yeah, and that's something Danny said too. I think it was a press conference in January. He said like, "Hey, like a lot of you like remember because you guys were here in like 2000 and 2007 when Rocky was at New Mexico. But you remember how fun that was, like how how filled up those stadiums would get. So that's clearly on his mind as well. And there is a section of the fan base I know that does feel pretty strongly like, hey, like even with conference realignment on the brain, we need to start kind of doing our part and showing up, like going to that Tennessee Tech game, going to the New Mexico State game, and all the rest of the home slate.
Sean, we appreciate you checking in. Thanks for the time, and we'll be talking to you during the season, okay?
All right. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
So New Mexico, they were never a powerhouse under Rocky Long, but they were consistent, right around 5 to 8 wins, and they did make 5 bowl games. And, for UNLV New Mexico, that's a bare minimum that you want to get to. I mean, you want to get to the point where, frankly, Nevada football has had high watermarks where they win, 8, 9, 10 games. You'd like to get to that level, but, all 3 schools are kind of in that same zone, and UNLV's been the least successful the last 25 years. Please don't fire me. I don't want to get Kevin Brown, right? But these 3 schools are kind of measuring sticks, and New Mexico's got to start making some progress. My God, offensively, it's just been rough.
I throw that Hawaii game on October 21st in there too. They get to host them right before that stretch against Nevada and UNLV.
And freaking Hawaii's plucky, man. Yep. We both like Timmy Chang, and the way that team was really depleted last year, and they play their asses off.